Chapter 13. Putting one foot in front of the other, Eloise walked as quickly as her slippered feet would take her without giving in to running. Ghostly hands reached to grab her between the gaps in every picket fence. Phantom footsteps followed her. Demons lurked behind the bushes. The darkness pressed closer, and she knew she wouldn't make it home. Berating herself amid the fear, she held the tears back. She was not a child. Walking a few blocks home in the evening should be something she was able to do without falling to pieces. But she couldn't. She had never been comfortable in the dark, but since finding Philip's body, she avoided it completely. Tobias even dumped the wash water out for her if she didn't get to it before night fell. Philip almost looked like he'd been asleep when she found him. But the moment she walked in, she knew he would never wake. His stillness was unnatural. She had gone to him, drawn by invisible strings, and rested her head on his shoulder, curling up against him, and wrapped an arm over his chest. He was still warm. The blood-soaked boards had later been replaced where his head laid. The tears hadn't come that day, only an emptiness. She didn't know how long she would have stayed with him if Katie and Tobias hadn't stopped by with Luke, who was only a few weeks old at the time. Tobias immediately took charge of the situation, and Katie took care of Eloise. She didn't remember much of the weeks that followed, except once the tears started, it sometimes felt as if they hadn't stopped in all these months. And then Zeke happened. He messed with her mind and made her livid. Through her panic, his words echoed. "It's time you did something. I hate to see you this way. How will you carry on?" If everyone would just leave her alone. And she'd kissed him. He'd swooped in and rescued her from spiraling. He'd been a friend. He'd taken her from the brink and reminded her that she wasn't alone, that someone cared, that there was goodness to be found, and she acted on a ludicrous whim, and he'd been repulsed by her. She shook her head, wishing she could wipe away the memory of Zeke's face. He had been surprised. Yes, but disgusted hadn't been the reaction she'd expected. She'd enjoyed his hands on her shoulders, cradling her neck. Making a fist, she wished to wash her hands of the feeling of his hand wrapped around hers. His heaving chest, as he caught his breath, had shown an edge of vulnerability. She'd leaned into him, thoroughly enjoying the warmth of Zeke's body. He'd called her a friend, and he'd looked at her with such compassion and heartfelt sincerity. She must have imagined the whole thing, blinded by her own physical desires. Okay, so she missed her husband, so she wished Philip was there with her, so she thought she could have one measly evening and pretend it all away. She wanted to scream, "I'm sorry, he's dead and he's not coming back." Ever. If only God had let her help him more. Everything would be different if he were alive. Never once had she dreamed of a future without Philip in it. She didn't know how to be without him. Indefinite grief was her future, and tonight taught her that it wasn't even worth pretending it was otherwise. Slowing her walk, she noticed where she was. Her house. At least, it used to be her house. Their house. One tear slipped out and opened the floodgates. Bracing her hands against the maple tree, she cried. She cried for Philip. She cried for her lost future. Sinking to the ground, she hugged her knees. She cried for herself and for being a fool. Pulling handfuls of grass on each side, she grappled for support. But there was none. She found no comfort in the grass. From dust to dust. Words from his funeral haunted her. "The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised." No! She would not praise him for this. Philip was goodness and faithfulness, and he should be there with her. Katie should, too. Luke was growing up with an aunt as a poor excuse for a mother because God messed up and took the wrong people. Eloise's thoughts ran in circles with little coherent pattern, and she had no means to stop it. Sobs contorted her breathing, and her face was soon drenched with tears that fell onto her dress as she buried her head between her knees.
"Hey, I'm here."
She startled at the voice. Seeing her brother's face brought on a new wave of tears when he leaned over, hands on his knees, breathing hard. He gave her his handkerchief and said nothing else while he knelt beside her and pulled her close. She slowly gained control of her breath and balled his now soiled handkerchief in her fist.
"Why didn't you wait for me?"
He rubbed her back.
"I would have gladly brought you home."
She shrugged, and a hiccup escaped when she swallowed.
"Did something happen?"
She shrugged again and sniffed.
"Did somebody say something?"
She nodded.
"I'm sorry."
He kissed the top of her head.
"Want me to go rough 'em up a bit?"
She nodded.
"Sure thing, sis. You just say the word. Any chance you want to tell your big brother what happened?"
She shook her head, but he waited quietly until she whispered, "Zeke happened."
After Tobias sprinted after his angry wife, Mary Beth attempted polite small talk. The strumpet even offered him a glass of water, as if he would take a drink from the likes of her. Zeke made poor excuses to get away, and when she tried to keep him talking, he brushed her off and walked away, leaving her pretending to be confused on the boardwalk. Dancing with Mrs. Davidson was a mistake. He should have refused her, regardless of how she twisted his arm and his heart. He knew better. The answer was no, no and no, and yet even now visions of her played constantly through his mind. Her sadness, her smile, her anger, her rounded cheeks and full pink lips. He wanted to crush her to him and tell her he would fix everything. Rubbing the memory of her kiss from his face, he grew more frustrated with himself and Tobias. Her husband's behavior fueled his anger, and the faster he walked, trying to push the couple from his mind, the more sullen he became. His mother's voice continued to play in his head, reminding him of the scriptures she'd forced him to memorize as a young child. "Thou shalt not covet. Thou shalt not commit adultery." He pushed against it. "How about, thou shalt not treat your wife like one among many. Thou shalt not flaunt your attractions to other women when you're at a social with your wife. Where was, thou shalt not be a rake?" No wonder Eloise was heartbroken. It was obvious now. She wasn't cherished as she should be. The kiss should never have happened. He should never have been standing alone with her. She was reaching for comfort, and he must have given her the wrong impression. But how brave of her to show her face in town at all. He held his hands together behind his neck and looked to the sky. If only he could squeeze out the growing frustration. This was not his problem. Eloise was not his. Jealousy flared, and he knew he was far more emotionally invested than he should be. "Thou shalt not covet, even when it's desirable." Go to work, get paid, leave. He did not need to be involved in anyone's problems. Good riddance. Looking around, he realized he had angry walked half a mile down the road out of town. Abruptly, he turned and stalked the other way. The 10 minutes back into town did not cool his anger. He rolled around the idea of approaching Tobias on Monday morning and slugging him in front of his crew. He was playing through the whole scene when a girlish laugh broke through his angry rants.
"Tobias, really?"
Low murmurs answered her, and Zeke saw the pair down the alley. "Mary, I've been waiting all week to be alone with you."
"I'm sure."
She laughed again.
"Is Eloise going to be all right?"
"I think so. She had a good time for a while. She's resting at home." He kissed her forehead. "Can we talk about us now?"
"Have you told her yet about us?"
Zeke froze. Walking away would be best. This was not his problem, and he wanted nothing to do with this vile man, yet his feet didn't move. He watched the silhouettes of the two between the dark outlines of the buildings. Tobias pressed his body against Mary Beth, pushing her back to the wall, and moved his hands to her face. He leaned his head down and whispered to her before he planted a kiss on her cheek, her jaw, and moved to her lips. Clenching his fists, Zeke boiled. He was not aware of having moved until suddenly he was yanking Tobias off Maribeth. Grasping the man's shoulder with one hand, he made contact with Tobias's face with the other. Maribeth screamed, running wildly into the streets, crying,
"Help! Help!"
Zeke barely registered her cry as the adrenaline coursed through him. With both hands he violently shook Tobias. "How could you?" Once the initial shock passed through Tobias, he took hold of himself. He easily pulled free from Zeke and slammed him against the brick wall. "Zeke?" Warning bells were ringing through his head, but Zeke ignored them. He'd gone too far to back down now. Hardly a match for Tobias, he struggled to stand. Ramming the top of his head into Tobias's face, he aimed a fist at his ribs. Tobias stumbled, holding his side. "Zeke, are you drunk?" "Don't play dumb." Zeke launched himself from the wall and charged Tobias. He struck at air as Tobias dodged his swing. Grabbing Zeke's hand and twisting it behind his back, Tobias forced him to the ground. "You want to stop swinging at me?" Tobias released him, stepping back and breathing hard. But Zeke wasn't listening to reason. He surged to his feet and shouldered Tobias in his midsection, using as much strength as he had to knock him into the wall. "You're disgusting," Zeke grunted when Tobias shoved him again. "Quit it." Tobias spun Zeke and shoved him face first into the wall, pinning him there. "You don't want to pick a fight with me. I'm taller, stronger, and outweigh you. Now knock it off. Something's gotten into you, and you're acting insane." "Take your hands off me." Zeke gritted his teeth as he struggled against Tobias's weight. "And let you attack me again? I don't think so." Running feet came down the boardwalk and skidded to a stop next to him. "I'll take it from here, boss." "Thanks, Sheriff." Rough hands grabbed Zeke from behind, and cold metal handcuffs slipped onto his wrists. The fight went out of him then. He relaxed and hung his head. "Lord, what have I done?" "You're under arrest for the charge of aggravated assault, disturbing the peace, and probably drunkenness. I'm inviting you to stay the night at my place until we get this straightened out."